This is the Other 22 Hours podcast.
Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the Other 22 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Shafer-Haiss.
And I'm your host, Michaela Anne, and this is our second year. We're so happy to still be here, and thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, a couple quick things before we jump into today's episode. It's come to our attention that though a lot of us have to deal with streaming on a daily basis with our music, not a lot of people understand that podcasts make $0 from streaming on all platforms combined. With that, we turn to you guys to ask for a little help in growing our show. The first thing you can do is to subscribe or follow our show on your listening platform of choice. That way it can tell the algorithm that we're worth 45 minutes of your time and maybe put us in front of some new listeners. The second thing you can do is to take your favorite episode and share it with somebody that doesn't know about our show. Maybe you share it on social media, send it as a text message, just talk about it with a friend around the fire, whatever it might be. And then lastly, if you would like to directly support our show, we have started a Patreon that goes more into depth about our creativity, about being sustainable in this career, and a whole lot of other goodies. There's a link to that in the show notes below if you'd like to check it out.
Yeah, and we really take pride in the fact that we are not music journalists. We are musicians ourselves, so we feel like these conversations are exactly that, conversations and not interviews. We like to say that it's just like sitting around at the dinner table and having an honest, vulnerable, real conversation about what it is to build a lifelong career around your art.
And in that career, there is so much that is outside of our control. And so we like to keep these conversations focused on what is within our control. Our mindsets, our habits, our routines. And we distill that down to the question, what do you do to create sustainability in your life so that you can sustain your creativity? And today we got to ask that question of our longtime friends, David and Adam Moss. They are twin brothers in an aptly titled band, Brother Brothers.
Yeah, and the Brother Brothers, they were in some of the early iterations of Anais Mitchell's Hadestown. Adam is a side fiddle player for Levi Turner currently, but they have toured as a group supporting Lake Street Dive, Sarah Jarosz, Keb Mo, Big Thief, Courtney Marie Andrews. They've been doing this a very long time. And this conversation, I realized we didn't actually talk that much about what we do to sustain.
Not at all. We touched it at the top and it was like, what do you mean? And then kept going. But we did share some horror stories of the road and the early days in very strange places that we've slept.
Yeah, and it continuously gets back to why we continue to do this, taking realistic, honest evaluations of our careers and how different that is for each of us, what the barometer is for how we say if this is working or not, and what the motivation is.
Yeah, I would say that this is one of the more kind of business heavy conversations that we've had, focusing on honestly the income and the financial stress of this business. But in our mindsets to that, David makes a really great point that the financial success of a song has nothing to do with the quality of the song. We take a minute to kind of touch on that as him being the main songwriter in the band and his feelings of having to choose a single and what's going to resonate with people versus being like, no, this other one's the best song on the record. It's a really, really fun conversation with some old friends. Just on a technical note, David and Adam were on tour while we had this conversation in a green room. And so the first 10 minutes or so of the episode will sound a little bit different, but we sort it all out and the majority of it is smooth sailing. So stick with us. And without further ado, here's our conversation with the Brother Brothers.
Guys, how are you?
We're okay. We had a day off yesterday. We were in West Virginia visiting some friends. So we went rock climbing and kind of went hard, to be honest. Yeah, we're tired.
Tired? Yeah. So you're in the middle of a tour, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like on top of us being close friends and having a history, you guys had already been on our list of people to have just because, yes, the brother thing, but you guys each had careers prior to this, you know, doing different things for years. You know, you guys were part of one of the original incarnations of Hadestown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're doing this like almost exclusively. I know you guys still dabble in other things, but
Adam's got a kind of big gig right now, right?
Yeah, I'm on tour all year, actually.
Yucky.
Ouch. But yeah, so for all of those reasons, you guys have been on our list as a guest for a long time. It's nice to finally get you guys here. Thank you for squeezing it into the day.
Where are you guys at right now? How do you feel? I know, Adam, you just said you're on tour constantly right now with the Brother Brothers, and then you have another side gig as a fiddle player. And David, you just got married? Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually woke up this morning and I looked into the mirror and I said to myself, I'm so tired.
Wow.
Like out
That was a
loud?
moment I clocked today. I said it out loud.
So obviously it's not the first time you felt that way on tour. Do you just kind of just keep running and hope it like digests in, or are there things
I'm
that
just
you'd
watching
like
the
to
dollars roll in.
do? Yeah, that helps.
Just dollars. Just chasing them.
No, but for real, like, what do you do to stay fresh or to like reset? You said you went climbing yesterday and all of that, which
Yeah, I'm like trying to just find any moment where I can motivate to do anything that's healthy for myself. And I get so much pleasure and enjoyment out of it. And it's so hard to find and to do that it doesn't happen all the time. Like anytime that I can do anything that's with self-care, very proud of myself. And then like reminding myself when I am on stage, this is what this is about. This is why I do the other stuff. That's the only method, but I'm struggling right now. But let's talk about David's wedding. Yeah, walked all over it.
You're like, congratulations, David. I'm tired. Well, yeah, it's like squeezing in a huge life moment, not squeezing it in, but like it's amongst all of the work of touring.
Yeah.
And first of all, we should also establish that your wife's name is Michaela Anne.
Yeah, totally. The amount of times I've almost texted you.
I'll never forget being at Skinny Dennis and you came in one night and you were like, I'm dating a girl named Michaela Anne. I was like, what? Amazing.
Yeah, I got married and it was really funny because we were on tour and then right after we got home from tour, it was like, okay, let's throw a wedding. And it was the amount of similarities that were there for like throwing a show was like, it's just kind of freaky. Because I was also like, I was in charge of booking the band and talking to the sound person. Like the sound is something that I know from just playing weddings and whatnot. I know how badly that can go. So I was just talking to him all the time, making sure that everything was going to be cool, like making sure all the musicians were taken care of and all the little things that can go wrong at a wedding. I was like, wow, I'm basically just throwing a show.
Yeah.
And then when we got there, it also felt very similar. Once it was going, it was like I was able to really enjoy it. So that was cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. But it went off without a hitch and it was so much fun and it was beautiful. It wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was amazing.
Congratulations. Where did you guys get married?
In Texas, in the hill country.
Yeah.
It was great.
Incredible.
You said you were on tour. Did you go back on tour after you got married?
We had about a week and a half off and then back to tour.
Yeah,
Nice.
we had like 3 days after our wedding. We got married in Pennsylvania. Adam, you were there. Barely. You just barely made it.
Yeah, we can share that. Adam played while I walked down the aisle, right? And Adam missed the rehearsal.
Oh my goodness.
I was flying in from Europe, my first European trip.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Super jet
I was
lagged.
complete jet lagged.
I just remember you and Ellie like not leaving Brooklyn with enough time. But it was beautiful. You did great and we appreciate you.
Really count on this guy
Yeah.
to really squeeze it in. You know? Which is what I'm doing right now too.
Yeah. So after our wedding, with our phenomenal work-life balance, we had 2 days to get to Nashville to get down for Americana Fest because it was really important for us to leave our wedding to play to about 40 people at the basement for $150.
That is not true. That is not true. It was at the Station Inn. There were definitely more than 40 people there. But also, this is a good point that it was the first time I got Americana Fest. So it felt like such a, oh my God,
Yeah.
I got asked to play Americana Fest and like last minute. And so like, of course we have to not go on a honeymoon and get back to Americana Fest. And an interesting point because has that shifted for you guys? The things that you may have elevated in the past and prioritized over personal life events and your personal life?
I think part of being a musician is understanding that, for example, you don't want to be on a honeymoon wishing that you were somewhere else. And you can have a honeymoon at a different time. And I think there's a lot of people that don't appreciate that about life, maybe sometimes. You know, it's like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be done. And so this is the way I'm going to do it, even though it might not be the proper way to make it happen. And speaking of Aeneas Mitchell in Hadestown, I remember a very interesting moment riding with her. This is probably, 2012 or something like that. We were just on one of the long drives, and I think it was just me and her in the car, and we were talking about something, and she is maybe one of the harder working musicians I've ever met and is blessed with a lot of opportunities and always said yes. And it made her admirable because she was so hardworking. But she said that the thing that she regrets most is the amount of birthdays and weddings and whatever she skipped just to like play on a stage in a pizza restaurant, and like, oh man, I really should have gone to that wedding. But who knows? You don't want to miss out, but also you want to make sure. So it's figuring out what your values are, I think, is a very important part of being an on the road musician.
Yeah. Has that evolved for you guys since you're now not 25 anymore? And also, do you guys ever differ in your feelings about what should be the priority as brothers and bandmates?
Yeah, it's shifting right now, but I think the way that the pandemic has affected the way that the two of us view the music business and tour, and I was saying, I think that we're unique. I think there's a lot of musicians that I know and a lot of musicians that are working out there that record and they, bartend or they do other things to try to supplement their situation. And because they're constantly creating, David and I tour. That's what we like to do. That's kind of the only dragon we've been chasing is get better at music so more people ask us to play so that we can go on the road, write more songs so that I can book gigs so that I can go on the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been our vehicle. And since the pandemic happened, I thought things would shift a little differently or maybe they'd go back and I was just waiting. And now I'm like, oh shit, this is never going back. TikTok and Facebook and Instagram won. They won hard. And so if you don't have that social media thing or you don't have that, what are you going on the road for? It's way too expensive. Try to make it that way.
Yeah.
When I say make it, I mean make a living. Also, that concept is shifting too. But if we don't have that, we don't have the guarantee that the shows are going to sell out. It's not worth it to anybody to go out there.
You guys both left the city during the pandemic, correct?
Yes.
There was like big changes. Living in a camper for a while, picking up surfing, all of these.
Yeah.
Like how much of that for each of you, if you guys want to talk about like new activities, new habits, broader horizons, all of that, and whether that continued or if that's fallen away now that album cycles are back and tours are back.
If that shifted your relationship to touring as well.
It's interesting that me as a touring musician couldn't go on the road, and me and Michaela found the only way to go on the road, which is in a camper, and we did that. But it was also, a monetary thing because we got our stimulus and bought a camper, and we were like, we're not going to give it to our landlord and just like sit here and just let it, like we're going to do something useful with it. And that was the most useful thing we could think of. We really discovered like cooking and spending quality time is the thing. I think a lot of people discovered what that felt like. And it was like an adventure to just not have anything to do. And so that's the biggest thing. And I think I'm honestly chasing that a little bit, the traveling and going and seeing things, but it's really the idea of not really having anything that you have to do. And that's what I discovered over the pandemic.
I wonder if that shifted the feeling or the justification for how hard touring can be, the financial stress of it and all that stuff. If your kind of attention and energy is now awakened to, it's actually really awesome to travel, not for shows. I feel like that was a big shift for me, that I was like, my whole life was about traveling for shows, and then you tack on some fun travel on it, but everything's driven by shows. And then we didn't do what you guys did as long, but we did 2 weeks of a road trip and mountain biking, and we went to a different place every night. So we were like, oh, we went on tour, but with no shows. But the freedom of like getting to see beautiful landscapes and move your body, because we were hiking and biking. I still struggle with it, that I'm like, I would endure so much more hardship in the past to be able to tour and to be able to what I thought I was doing, which was building on tour. And now I feel like I don't believe in it the same way, which is what I think I'm hearing from you, Adam, of like, oh, you go ground it out and you DIY, you build the grassroots. And now it kind of feels like, is that possible, or is it all through our phones?
I think that there used to be an answer that was yes. And it was slow and it was steady. And I think that slow and steady growth can't happen the same way because the world around it has become so expensive and so unsustainable toward a touring lifestyle and toward local press and local ideas and hitting small areas and having them expand. The things that have changed have actually squashed that idea. And then on top of that, there's a certain naivete that I feel like in my pre-pandemic self I was rolling around with that made that possible, and it made it fun. And as we're talking, I keep wanting to bring up, I heard this interview by
I think his name's Sam Bankman-Fried, the dude who's got in trouble and then is fined, the ChatGPT guy.
I know who you're talking about. I don't think it's Sam Brinkman-Fried. I think that's Sam
he's in
dude is
jail.
the crypto guy.
Yeah.
Whoever that was, and forgive, you can do your research, you're doing the podcast, you put it in the notes. He said this very amazing thing that struck me so hard, and I think about it every day as I'm like struggling through my life. And he basically said, anybody who's doing a thing, and it's not that you're not working hard enough. If you're doing something and it has momentum forward, you can work every day. You can work all day, every day, and it's fulfilling, and you have ultimate energy for it because it gives you energy to have forward momentum because it's working and the hamster wheel is actually rolling somewhere. If your thing isn't working, no amount of work that you put into it is going to make it work better. Like he was like, if it's not working, scrap it, throw it out, start on something and see if that one has momentum. Because if you want to work hard on something that actually moves forward or let it go. It hit me so hard because I feel like David and I, like we have a great product. I really believe in our music and I really believe in the music that we're putting out into the world and the energy that we're putting out. But if it doesn't have momentum for whatever reason that it doesn't, then what's the point of doing this? And what's the point of going on the road and doing it? Like we can still make this music. We can still be brothers. We can still create this thing that we're creating. And we don't have to put ourselves through the rigor and difficulty and the insustainability of going out on the road unless it means something. That's the kind of the arrival that we're coming to right now is we're never going to break up. We're always going to be making music together and creating this thing, but we don't have to go out on the road and do this thing. Nobody has to anymore.
What emotions do you guys feel when you say that? Is it sadness? Is it like relief to say like, we don't have to be touring, we're doing this by choice?
There's a bit of sadness, but also there's a certain entitlement that I didn't realize that I had. And I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for Dave. I've actually never said this to him. But there's a certain entitlement that like, I just kind of assumed that if you went out on the road and you played your music and you got along with your bandmates, you just kept doing it and your music was good enough, which I believe it is, then I was entitled to have a successful career and be able to be a successful musician that could pay my bills and do all that thing. I didn't realize that that was an entitlement until very recently. As the world has changed, there's a lot of awakenings going on, hopefully with a lot of people, but definitely with this white guy his last 4 years and a lot of awakenings.
I can say it on a completely separate note that one of the things I love about traveling so much is going from town to town. And we're in Pittsburgh right now. And I used to have friends in Pittsburgh, but they moved away. But normally I'd be like, I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to go see Benny. Oh, this is going to be awesome. Or, oh, we had a day off in West Virginia. We went climbing with some great friends yesterday. And it was so fun. And we like cooked food over a fire and they were building this beautiful place. And it was just like so magical. And we're going to be in Chicago. We're going to see some great friends. We're going to see Chicago. And part of what I love about traveling is you're never a tourist. Every once in a while, you're a tourist. But so much you roll up to a town and there's always a logo. There's never a wall up. And you're like, oh, where's the coffee spot? I've got the night off. Where should I go see music tonight? What should I do? And it's always so special. And then you have these experiences where you might be in Indianapolis and somebody invites you over to a house party. And you have like a whole group of friends and a full shared memory. And that's what I love most about traveling. So I'm on a much different tip than Adam is. Granted, it is becoming a harder and harder way to make a living. And as you get older, you kind of need to make a living. So it's not as much, you don't derive as much pleasure, I think. I think we're both finding that. And we're trying to figure out ways to increase our income when we're home. But that's my answer to that question.
Like what you said, David, about like the experience of it is what you're really focused on. But obviously you have to also consider the realities of your financial stability, all this stuff. And Adam might in this context sound a little more focused on like, is this working? But what is our definition of working? We had Joe Pug on here and he mentioned something about like if he played a show to 30 people, like he would never go back to that market because that's like below his financial standards and like what he's able to do at this point. And I was like, there's a lot of places I'd be thrilled to sell 30 tickets in. Some people who are used to selling out, like if Casey Musgraves all of a sudden was selling only 100 tickets, she'd be like, I'm an epic failure. But some of us would be stoked and we would know how to build a life by only selling 100 tickets in markets. So we all have our own barometers of what feels like this is worth continuing, if it's working or not. So do you guys talk about that?
Totally.
Yeah, I think
as long as we're not plateauing. Right before the pandemic, we were really feeling like we were getting somewhere. Every show was a little bit better. During the pandemic, these past 4 years, there's just been like just got to be patient, wait and see. And now I feel like we're at a point where we can go just about anywhere in the country and have a similar amount of people if it's a bad show and have a similar amount of people if it's a good show. And it feels like it's getting somewhere, but also there are just so many shows where we're just like, wow, we really shouldn't have gone to that town. It's almost as if I'm still at a point where I'm like, man, I'd like to just keep hitting it. And I feel like there's something happening, but also is it a good way to figure out if something's happening just by hitting the road and missing out on home? It's a big question. It's the ultimate barometer too.
I was just going to say that. There's no better way of knowing than by putting your feet on the ground in the town.
And also determining then, like, I value being at home more than spending a month on the road. So maybe that means we're going to only go to half the towns that we went to, and we're going to focus on these fewer markets and be out for shorter periods of time. I think about that stuff a lot, this pressure to like build in so many different markets and be on tour for months on end. Or you could focus on a handful of places. Obviously, you have to find the right team that supports that endeavor. But yeah, everybody's priorities shift. I used to love to be on tour all the time. And now I'm like, it stresses me out to go away for a few days because I genuinely miss Aaron and our child who's watching TV in the vocal booth over there.
Yeah, that changes things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I wanted to point out, we've been talking about the obvious difficulties of being on the road, the pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic and how it's difficult. And I think it's great that like you guys are seeing similar numbers than you were before and like feeling that excitement.
Well, we're seeing better numbers, which is a little deceiving.
Okay, even better. So yeah, you guys are seeing better numbers than you were before. And at a time when I notice a lot of people are stripping back and doing more things solo or duo, like you guys are out there with a full band now, right? So I would assume two other people or more than that?
2. Yeah, drummer and bass player.
Yeah. How has that been?
We figured out a way to make it work. We couldn't add another person. If you add one more person, it's a whole nother hotel room. It's a different kind of vehicle. Like they're stuffed in a van right now.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to do this for another 3 years with us. It's not exactly sustainable, but nothing about this touring life is exactly sustainable. It has to have momentum forward and it has to grow. Yeah. And they're stoked and we have a lot of fun and we take as good of care of them as we can. There's a lot of musicians that give some creature comforts and take the band out and maybe pay them a little less than we would, but we make sure to, this is the deal, and we tell them everything when we go, and you're going to make this much money, and you're going to share hotel rooms, and every once in a while there's going to be an air mattress, just because that's why we hired 23-year-olds.
I mean, there's something to be said about that.
They're stoked. They're amazing musicians, and we're meeting all their friends, and all their friends are amazing, and it's cool, and we're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes, and it's like, personally, I'd much rather sleep on an air mattress to make a little bit extra money. So we're kind of coming at it from that perspective, but we're making it work and it's cool.
The places that I slept when I was like 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, like in my 20s, like
Yeah.
there was one place I slept in a rug, rolled myself up in a rug because there was no blankets or anything else. And I was like, well, this will keep me warm. And I had rug burns everywhere.
Wow.
I mean, Adam, do you remember the hotel when you and I went on tour? You played fiddle for me and we opened for Layla Michaela and we went into a Days Inn and we were sharing rooms the whole time. And I remember there was cigarette ash on the bed sheets, like on the pillow.
Remember that. Cigarette
God
holes.
Damn it. Yeah. No, like fresh ash. Like someone had been like smoking in there and just flicked their cigarette butt. And I was like, oh, and it was super late. And I was like, we have to go change rooms. And I remember, Adam, you went, it's fine. I'll sleep in it. Because you were so tired. Wow. You were like, I don't want to go back. Because it was like one of those motel situations. You were like, I don't want to go back to the lobby and pack our stuff. But like, I'll sleep in it. It's fine.
Man, I can like kind of feel like the sticky wetness of the carpet in
and
hotels.
The next room wasn't going to be much better.
Yeah.
I remember very well, very early on, Adam was in a bluegrass band and I went to go ride in the van with them for a couple of days because we used to party like that. And we were in Tucson, Arizona, and they didn't have a place to stay. And they said from the stage, does anybody have a place to put us up tonight? And these 2 college kids were like, we have a place for you to come stay. Here's the address. We roll up after the show, like at midnight. And thus commences one of the craziest house parties I've ever witnessed. And this is the house that we were staying in. And there was 2 couches and that's it for like 6 or 7 people. And the floor looked like it hadn't been cleaned in 5 years. And it was insane. And I remember sleeping upright on the couch next to somebody else. I don't know where everybody slept, but it was wild.
That's almost verbatim my exact experience on one of my worst tour sleeping experiences, which was right here in Chattanooga. We played JJ's Bohemia, which I don't think exists anymore. But do you guys ever play that place?
No.
It was fun. I think it was downtown, kind of crusty place, cool, like backyard.
I've heard of it for sure.
Yeah, like tons
legendary.
of bands played. We were when we lived in New York, and it wasn't with Michaela, it was with the Woes, and we had set it up ahead of time. This wasn't like a call out from stage. We had talked to the opening band. We're like, hey, we need a place to crash. Like, we got you, don't worry. And so like after the show, they're like, we're gonna take you to our favorite bar in town. We're like, oh man, we're so tired. I think we came from like Chicago that day or something. Oh man, we're tired. We just like want to go back and chill. And they're like, cool, no problem. Here's our address. We'll see you at the house. We're like, cool. And we show up and everybody that was at the show was at their house. We pulled in and like before we even turned off the van, the bass player was just like, I'm sleeping in the van. Like called it immediately, and so we're like hanging out for a little bit. I'm like, oh, I got to find a place to sleep. And so I'm going like room to room. And like the best place I could find was this room that like had a couple couches just covered in dirty clothes. There was like a big bucket like full of cigarette butts. There was like a litter box on the other side. And I just kind of like made some room on the floor. And I had a sleeping bag, got my sleeping bag out, fell asleep. And I woke up, I don't know, like an hour later or 2 hours later to like people going at it on the couch right next to me. And I was just like, what is this play? Like, what am I doing?
Having sex.
Yeah.
Having sex.
We got
that.
Thank you for the translation.
Okay, why do we do this? Gross.
That was one of the last tours that band ever did, for sure. I think we got back to New York and we're like, cool, we each made like $150 after like 2 weeks.
Yeah. You know what though? Here's the thing. I'll tell you why we do this. Because you have complete ownership of every one of your decisions and nobody will hold it against you. And none of us would survive in a workplace where we have a boss breathing down our neck telling us what we did wrong. And any musician that I know that has a boss like that, like a band leader or just somebody on the road that doesn't treat them with their own anonymity and respect. Autonomy, thank you. Then they're gone, because that's the only thing we care about is our own autonomy and validation. I got a new theory. Autonomy and validation. That's the only thing that any human needs in their life. And some people do better without it. Musicians are the privileged few who have grown up with the privilege of being able to think that they get to walk through this world being validated all the time and to have autonomy all the time. And the second that that's taken away from them, they freak out. So as long as you have those two things, you don't even need a place to stay.
Yeah.
I think we also like really, in order to do this, you have to just value experiences and adventure as well, because like it's so fun to recount these horror stories, being so uncomfortable and so exhausted and so filthy. But you're just like, but remember when we did that? It was thinking back on the tour that you and I did together, Adam. Like I still remember that sunset, that insane sunset that we saw driving into Philly. Do you remember that? I remember fighting with Tin Angel to pay me $25. Like, and remember, and
the booking agent who didn't answer you.
Yeah, just like so
Who's
many
now our booking
things. Oh God.
Don't worry, he won't listen to it unless one of his friends tells him we talked about him. Although we haven't named any names.
We won't put it in the show notes.
Oh my God, we have like
Save the Google.
so many
save the Google
references
alerts.
of terrible booking agents on this podcast.
I want to
Anyways.
say, to second your theory, Adam, on autonomy and validation, and to call it back to what you were saying, David, about just being upfront with the 2 people that you hired for this tour. Obviously, you guys aren't getting rich on this tour, so you were very upfront with like, this is what you're going to get paid. This is what the sleeping is going to be like. By being very clear and upfront about it, you're honoring their autonomy and you're validating that.
That's right. And I feel like with you guys, last time we hung out, we talked about how amazing it would be if we could just get everybody in the world to just open up their books and be like, oh yeah, I have a grocery store and this is how much money I actually make. This is how much I pay everybody. This is how much I make and I take home at the end of the day. This is how much all my stuff costs. Just to know that everybody's freaking out the same and be like, oh, that person isn't freaking out. Why? And being able to just look at their life and be like, oh, that must be really nice. That's the key. They don't necessarily make a lot of money, but they live frugally and they have this thing that they like to do and it makes them happy. And so they're happy. Some people are chasing a car, they just want to like own a Mercedes and they're doing everything to have that Mercedes, and it's driving them insane.
This applies to a lot of different scenarios, but just to keep it in our career and our industry, I personally hear from a lot of people that have a lot of jealousy because they'll look at friends or peers that have a bus, they have a monitor guy, they have, front of house, they have all of that. And they're like, they're doing really well. Look at all they have. They might not be. The only thing that you can tell for sure without seeing their books is that they're spending a lot of money.
That's why I call Michaela. Michaela's got the inside scoop. And I'm like, is this person really doing well? And she's like, I just had dinner with her. Girl. Like, thank God.
Because I say all the time, like, I want to know what people are doing. And so I ask.
Yeah.
Also, I have, and I won't name names on this podcast, but like, I have other friends that we share our contracts with each other because we're just like, this is information we need to know. We've been told that this is like not proper etiquette or polite to share, but it's no, actually, we gain empowerment when we know. And I feel like we've done this, Adam, where we've been like sharing what we're getting paid at festivals. And there's like a fear of like, if I share and then if I find out, I'm going to discover that I'm getting paid less. And am I getting paid less because they think I don't have as much of appeal? My name is the lowest font. There's all this like self-judgment that we put and fear of judgment of others. So then we keep all this information to ourselves. But that only serves people who are holding the money. It doesn't serve us as artists.
We signed a record deal that we were less than pleased with, and it kind of started day one. We put pen to paper. Next day we had a phone call, and both of us were like, oh shit, that's what this is? There's no like, oh, you have 10 days to back out, or you're about to sign a record contract. Here's what you need to know.
Here's how they're going to try to screw you.
Yeah, here's how they're going to hold everything over you. And it's the smallest little things, but they really add up. And you're like, oh, if I would have known that this 7-year period didn't start till after our third record, I would have approached this a lot differently.
I think the other thing that we didn't realize, and I think a lot of people don't realize, is like that contract is meaningless because unless you're willing to go to court, which you're not, nobody's willing to go to court over this. Unless you're getting screwed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're not willing to go to court. And so therefore, whoever you sign this contract with has legal power over you. The money goes to them and they give it to you. So if they just hold on to the money because that's what the contract says.
Yeah.
That's that.
As an artist, especially in today's world, you're literally like trying to track down pennies everywhere from so many different potential income streams. And you can constantly feel like, is this worth tracking down $5 and like fighting for it? And it's so exhausting. And and then the power is not within our hands, and we all just want to be able to make music. So I guarantee you the majority of us have signed contracts that we've felt like a big part of this sucks. I'm giving up a lot, but they're supposedly going to help me. They're going to pay for things that otherwise I'd be taking out a loan, racking up debt on credit cards. You know, you're constantly weighing all of that stuff. And even if you have a lawyer, you don't really like know the real life ramifications until you live it.
You don't know the future. You don't know who the asshole is until they're an asshole. And sometimes they're never an asshole to your friend. Sometimes they hook your friend up and you're like, well, I'm going to get hooked up too. But you're not working out for them. You never know. You just never know. But the deck is definitely stacked against the artist. It's the money people that designed the system, and they designed it to benefit themselves because they don't get any of the glory. They don't get any of the glory. All they get is the money, and that's their glory. And that's why they're all the drunkest at the bar and all these music conferences talking about just the dumbest shit that none of us want to talk about. All they want is for us to like them, or they hate us.
Because they have no autonomy, but they still need the validation.
Very good. I think you're onto something. It's good.
I feel like one of the challenges of this time, and we're seeing it in the news a lot with Spotify now canceling, like doing payouts for any tracks or albums that are getting under a certain amount of streams. The divide between those that are lucky enough to quote unquote make it to make a living in the music business and those who are not, I feel like is getting wider. How do you personally and emotionally deal with grappling with that? Especially when you are close friends with people who are some of the luckier ones playing massive shows, big tours, all that stuff.
Okay, I have a philosophy. This is going to take a minute. But I think we forget because history is romanticized. But
Before 1920, if you were a musician, you were the dregs of society. You were the most important people in your town, or if you traveled to town, they needed you, but you were a bum and you were just traveling around, homeless, unfounded, but you were amazing and you were revered, except for when you came to get paid. But they needed you for weddings, for entertainment, for plays. They needed you, but it wasn't an industry. You just played music. And for whatever reason, however you fell into it, it was a living. You know, Stefan Grappelli used to play nine hours a day in a courtyard because this place, there was no speakers. So it was an industry. It was like a job. And then records came out and everybody was like, what do we do with that? And all the musicians were 30 years old and they were broke. They didn't know money. They just went from town to town and they sang into this little box and there was some business guy getting rich off of it. Somebody got wise and then some people got rich, but those were the only people that got rich. Everybody else was still doing that thing. That developed by people with money. But that was a romanticized time. There was like 5 people, maybe 5 people a year of all of the musicians that existed, which was many. There was like 5 people a year that got rich. And for some reason, because this is America, they're like, that could be me. And if it's not me, I'm entitled to that. But everybody was getting screwed until no doubt in 1990. And then all of a sudden, this Spotify comes out, the internet comes out, and then there's that weird time when Metallica sued Spotify. Can you believe Metallica was right?
It was Napster.
Napster, right. And then Spotify came out, and then there was this new era where it was like anybody's game again. But that was such a short-lived time, and power always consolidates. Money always consolidates. So to me, it's no surprise that this game is over. That was fun for a little bit, and now the game is older. There's a big industry. Spotify and the powers that be have figured out how to manipulate the situation, and then they throw a bone to somebody on the outside every once in a while.
The interesting thing is that through popularity, people aren't making money at their shows and they're not making money, real money, like buy a home money from their Spotify. They're making money from doing an Apple commercial or having their theme song featured on a movie or TV show. That's how they're making real money, through sponsorships. Taylor Swift, I bet she makes money off of her shows, but I've seen the inside of a stadium when one of those shows is going on, and the amount of people and buses, and they got those things that turn the semis so that they can turn around. I don't even know how much that thing costs, but that money gets spent. And I think Taylor Swift is going to make more money on her clothing line than she is on her music, you know?
Zach Bryan makes more money off of t-shirts. He makes the same amount of money off of t-shirts as he does, probably more than ticket sales. I don't even know that he has records for sale at his shows.
Whoa.
But I know he has many, many different options of clothing.
So we all talk about like, then how are people surviving? We can always share like how we're surviving. I last year went through and kept track of where all my income comes from because I wanted to see like, am I making all my income from teaching? Because I was like, am I a music teacher and do I dabble in music? And no, and I realized, it was like pretty proportional that my income comes from my teaching and my songwriting coaching, which is very much fed by my fans and people being aware of my music, but then also show fees, which I make more money when I go out solo and do support tours because I can sell merch. We're all like t-shirt slingers. I'm doing like a half off sale on my website and it's significantly helpful right now because people are buying a ton of stuff. And I was thinking as I was rolling up all these t-shirts to mail, I was like, I simultaneously love and I'm so grateful for this and also hate this. I never wanted to be a merchandise seller.
You're resenting it. Yeah.
But I'm so grateful that I can post on my Instagram and people will buy a bunch of my t-shirts and that helps me have some income. So there's all these other different ways. But Adam, do you just accept this is what it is and you don't ever feel like you have to grapple with, damn, they seem to have really lucked out and it seems to really be working for them and have great momentum?
I have a unique window into, I'm trying not to expose my boss, but I'll just say this. I'm on tour in a band with Levi Turner. Zach Bryan's people discovered him on TikTok. He's a kid that's from Flowvilla, Georgia. He's 19 years old. He's a recovering alcoholic, and he is an incredible songwriter. I truly think that he is one of the great songwriters in our time. And when I say one of the great songwriters in our time, I mean, I've met a lot of great songwriters, and he is one of them. You can only get so good, and then you're just different. Nobody writes the same song, so you can't really compare. But like, he is up there. He's a great songwriter. But this kid has the right story, got signed by this thing, and they're pumping money into him. That's lucky. He spoke to a certain thing at the right time in history, and it worked out for him for now. Zach Bryan's doing the same thing. He was in the military. He was writing about his feelings. Those feelings hit with a lot of people, and they compounded because everybody has feelings. He got lucky, and then he kept doing the right things, and his management all did the right things too. They're all doing the right things, but that's lucky, and it's always been that way. Patsy Cline, amazing voice, one-of-a-kind voice. How many one-of-a-kind voices have you not heard about? You'll never know. They just didn't get found, didn't speak at the right time. There's probably a Patti Smith in 1920 that wasn't right because she was Patti Smith in 1920. You'll never know. It's always luck. Nobody gets to be a billionaire twice.
Yeah, and I would like to also just highlight that, like, yes, this kid was found, but they're pumping money into him right now. So again, no saying if this kid has the legs to stand on his own right now. Chances are probably not. I would venture to guess, Adam, that your paycheck from this tour is coming from Zach Bryan, not coming from this kid.
Coming from Columbia Records, I think, but yeah.
Exactly. Michaela was working at Nonesuch when the Black Keys released Brothers, right? Like you had been there for like a year or so at that point. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm telling your story, but there was a joke around the office there before Brothers came out that their paychecks were coming from Green Day because Nonesuch is a subsidiary of Warner and Green Day was selling records and nobody on Nonesuch was really selling enough records to pay their salaries. And then Brothers came out and that changed everything.
It's like when luck meets
Opportunity
meets preparation, meets talent, meets
That's
hard
real
work.
shit.
Yeah, but it's not just solely one thing, which I think we can sometimes think, oh, if someone's really good, the cream rises to the top. Well, no, that's actually not how it works. And I think for me, working at a record label, one of the things that was really beneficial to see was just how much money does go into bands, artists, or even if somebody went viral, like the amount of money that then is poured into it to try and make sure that people hear about it over and over and over again. It takes a lot of money. Music takes a lot of money to make and promote. For people who are listening are like, how come it hasn't worked out for me? Like, it might not be that you suck. It might be that you just haven't gotten lucky enough to have the funding to make great videos, to advertise, to put you in front of the right people. There's a million elements that go into it that create quote unquote success. David, what do you think?
I was just thinking about how the zeitgeist is always changing. And I've seen plenty of friends do really well. The same way that we got playlisted really well. And I know for a fact that we were playlisted because there was somebody that was working at Spotify that was a huge fan of ours. And we were new at the time and it just happened. And we did our best to capitalize on it, and I don't know how well we've done, but that person doesn't work there anymore, and it's showing. And it's really interesting because now we're addicted to that income stream. It's actually keeping us afloat in a lot of ways. And we've been talking about the music business a lot. Sometimes it's really hard to when you attach money to how good a song is. Every time that we've had a song be playlisted, it's the first song we released. Boom, done. That's a very difficult thing for me because I really care a lot about the songs that I write and I really spend a lot of time on them. And then it's like, oh, that one that, is just the most upbeat one. And they told us to release that one first. And then that's the one that everybody knows. And I'm like, yeah, but I know you came to see that song because that's the one you heard. But what about these other ones? I'm just watching people just glaze over because they never heard the song before. And I'm like, oh, this is the one. This is the one I want you to hear. It's very interesting to me.
What you said about the financial draw of a song does not equate the quality of the song is so important.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good example for what the music business is because we're doing a publicity campaign right now and they're like, oh, no, you don't want to do that one. I'm like, that's the best song on the album. Or that's the best written song on the album. And they're like, yeah, but it's slow. And it's not even in any of the singles that we're putting out. And I'm afraid that nobody's going to even notice it.
Yep. I know. Who decided that people don't like slow songs? I love slow songs.
I know. Same.
Get it.
That's another thing about social media that we've been talking about is people don't have patience anymore. They don't I listen to albums.
There's no room for subtlety.
There's no room for subtlety. I love hitting the road and I'm like, man, I can't wait to hear Michaela Anne put out a new record. And I don't just click on the link. I'll listen to the singles as they come out, but I definitely take a moment to listen to the entire album because most of the time, hopefully, if somebody puts out a whole album, they do it because that's a chapter of their life, maybe a year or two of their life that they wrote all those songs in. Whatever they were feeling at that time, they got the band together, they had the producer, they looked at them all and said, how is this a collection of me and something that I did? And so I want to hear that whole album. And I feel like that's getting lost. The amount of times that I've accidentally, and I say accidentally because I do it often, but I listen to a song and it's like, there's like a fill at the beginning and then the first line, something that I'm just like, oh, okay, never mind. And I'll just like, next song. And it's not fair, but it's also just where we're at now. There's just so much.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us that are there, and it's finding a way to balance the two. The hope is that lead single will draw people in and get them excited so that when the record does come out, you listen to the whole thing. I'm the same way. I listen to full records, but I can also sympathize with everybody feeling like, music coming out today. There's so much music being released. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
We're 41 years old. We put out a bunch of records. We've been in the music business. We watch a lot of people get big. But I think the one thing that I've seen, there's a happiness quotient, there's a success quotient, there's money, there's energy, there's momentum, there's all of those things. But the only thing that I've seen work for anyone is when they are as truly themselves as they can be, both business-wise, music-wise, the music that they make, the style that they play in, the words that they say, the story behind the songs. If they can stay true to themselves, they can own it and they can sustain it. Because if you're not true or you're not being yourself, then it gets exhausting or people see through it or it doesn't work for people. You can't fake that kind of thing. And people need that. Maybe it's not your time for success, but at least you're being yourself and finding yourself and being true and giving the world something authentic.
Yeah, I tell that to basically every artist I work with. I'm like, yes, you can get absolutely rich from one song, but it's luck and it's lightning striking. And the value in making a record today is shelf life. And if you are honest and you're true to yourself, that is not going to age. It'll be timeless. Right. And 20 years from now, you'll be able to listen back and be like, that's a record. So you said it much more eloquently than I did.
Thank you guys so much. I know that you have to go to sound check. Also, I know I've told you guys this personally because we're very good friends, but I wanted to say on the podcast, because as a woman who had a baby, there's all the career stuff about, you don't get called anymore and you don't get whatever opportunities anymore. You guys called me a week after I gave birth and said, hey, we're making a record in Nashville. Do you want to come sing? And that was like such a life giver to me, even though I just birthed life, to just feel like, oh my God, someone's like thinking of me and didn't think, oh, she's probably busy with her baby. And that was just such an incredible experience that we as a family also will never forget. So thank you for thinking of me and being good people that didn't write off a pregnant lady with a newborn
And the song
baby.
turned out really well.
It's beautiful.
Turned out really beautifully.
Yeah.
Working out your A flat.
Yeah. Okay.
Love you guys.
All right, guys.
Thank
Love you. Bye.
See ya. Have a great show.
Hey, real quick before we wrap up today's episode, it takes a lot to produce even a small show like ours, so if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider taking a minute to check out our Patreon. There's a lot happening over there, all with the intent of growing our community and offering you more resources to navigate a career based on your art more sustainably. You can learn more at the link in the show notes below. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll catch you next time on the Other 22 Hours podcast.